Discovered a little worth looking at in the town. Found the buggy waiting. My coachman, a regular Yankee puffing vigorously at an immense cigar, was seated in readiness, his legs resting on the splashboard without removing the cigar from his mouth. He drawled out, "Say, Captain, guess you'd better be hurry up if you mean making the ranch before sundown. Bet your pants this child ain't agwin that road in the dark nohow." "What's to happen?" I mildly inquired. "Happen? Well, maybe upset, maybe chewed up by a grizzly, maybe cleaned up slick out by the greasers. You'd better believe a man has to keep his eyes skinned in the dark daytime. So hurry up, Captain." Without further parley, I scrambled in, and away we went. Our road lay over broad plains and through occasional belts of timber, deep gravelly arroyos, in and out which we dashed with a plunging scrabble, marked the course of the floods. Everything was steaming hot. The baked ground reflected back the scorching sun rays until the atmosphere quivered as one sees it over a lime kiln. The mustangs in a fog of perspiration, the Jehu, denuded by of coat and vest, continually yelled a get along, with a rein in each hand, steering rather than driving, was red hot in body and temper, but this was nothing to my state of broil, exposed to a temperature that would have made one perspire sitting in the shade, to be kept in a state of bodily fear of instant upset, to undergo a continuous exercise that would have been good training for an athlete, to avoid being shot out of the buggy like a shell from a mortar, would have set an Icelander in glow. The rapidity with which we were whirled along, and the eccentric performances of the vehicle destroyed in a measure the enjoyment of a scene quite new to me. We rattled through the splendid valley of Santa Clara, passing here and there like a fertile ranch on either side. The wooded slopes looked like lawns of nature's own contriving. Far on my left, the bay glimmered like a line of silver light. The ground carpeted with flowers, brilliant escalodia and blue nymphophilia, were most conspicuous amidst a natural harvest of wild oats and grass, and all sides amongst the clumps of buckeye and oak, the cheery whistle and chirp of birds rang pleasantly on the ear. Reaching the halfway house, as a small wooden building is named, midway betwixt San Jose and the mine, we stopped to water the mustangs and refresh the inward man. As a respite most acceptable, a tall drink worked wonders on my hitherto taciturn coachman, whom, as we jogged along the remaining half of the journey, related such wonderful stories that it seemed to me we had hardly left the halfway house, ere we rattled over a grove of trees, completely shutting out the fading light, and pulled up with a sudden jerk that well nigh pitched me over the mustangs. "Guess we've made it, Captain. This here's the manager." Giving my letters of introduction to Mr. Young, a hospitable invitation to be his guest was readily accepted. I cannot help devoting the line to the praise of a house most enjoyable in its minutest details, with a host and hostess that refreshes one's heart to recall to memory. The lower village of Almaden consists of a long row of very pretty cottages, the residences of the workmen employed in the smelting of the ore. Each cottage was completely buried with honeysuckle and creeping roses, the gardens in front filled with flowers, and at the back with vegetables and fruits. A small stream of water, clear and cold, rippled past the fontage, brought from a mountain burn that runs swiftly at the back, a barrier dividing the gardens from the surrounding hills. An avenue of trees leads from the cottages to the spacious brick building used for smelting. The discovery of these fabulously rich mines of quicksilver is briefly told. Long ere gold was discovered in California, the Padres, for early settlers knew of a caravan in the hillside about a mile and a half from the present village, deeming it merely a natural fissure or a cleft in the rock. Explorations only were made by the more adventurous as to its extent, from which proved to be in length 100 feet, running into the mountain horizontally. No one ever thought it was an artificial excavation of great antiquity. When the vaqueros and old dons of the neighborhood were questioned by a newcomer about the cave, a shrug of the shoulders and the usual reply, "Quien sabe? Son cosas muy antiguas," was the sole information obtained. A gold seeker, assaying some of the rock, salivated himself, and thus discovered it. It was rich in quicksilver. A grant with the land adjoining was procured, and the original opening widened. In clearing away the rubble and dirt at the end of the old cave, several skeletons were discovered, together with rude mining tools and other curious relics, clearly proving it an old excavation made by the natives for the purpose of procuring vermilion, so much used by all savages to paint themselves. The position of the skeletons and the rubbish covering them left no doubt that, having followed the vein of cinnabar from without exercising due precaution to prop the loose ground overhead, they had literally buried alive in a grave of their own digging. Further research soon revealed the immense value of the deposit. Many years rolled away, and the very little was done until it passed from the hands of an old English company into that of an American firm. The mine is about a mile and a half from the smelting works, on the side of a mountain. An outer marble road leads to it by a gentle ascent, down which wagons drawn by mules bring the ore to be smelted. On reaching the summit, I rested on the level plateau on which the upper works are built. I am to descend presently into the depths of the mine to see how the ore is deposited, and trace step by step the various processes it has to go through before it is marketable. The main entrance is a tunnel 10 feet high and about an equal width throughout, in which runs a tramway leading to the shaft. At the end of this tunnel, a small steam engine does the work of the portaneteros, or carriers, who, until very recently, brought the ore and rubbish from the bottom of the mine on their backs. A system still adopted in Spain and Peru, each man having to bring up a load or 200 pounds. A bag made of hide fastened by two straps passing around the shoulder, and a broader one across the forehead, which mainly sustains the load. It was fatal work to the poor Mexicans who had to do it. The terrible muscular strains soon producing disease and death. On reaching the engine, I am undressed and rigged as a miner, a costume far more loose and easy than becoming. 3 drip candles dangled from a button on my jacket by the wicks, and one enveloped in a knob of clay for my head completed my toilet. The next process is to be lowered down into the mine, squeezing myself into a huge kind of bucket, and assuming as near as practicable to the shape and position of a frog, my candle lighted. "All right," says somebody, and I find myself rapidly descending a damp, dismal hole, dripping with water like a shower. Of course, I shudder, and having horrible ideas of an abyss ending no one knows where. The candle hissed, sputtered, and went out. The bucket swang as the chain lengthened and bumped unpleasantly against the rocks. Now a sudden stop and a lively consciousness of being dragged bodily out like a bundle of clothes discloses the fact of my safe arrival at the bottom. The swarthy Mexican mariner, deputed as guide, leads the way along a narrow gully and down an incline to the mouth of another hole, the descent to which has to be effected on a slanting pole with notches cut into it. very like a bear pole, called by the miner an esclera, requiring a salutary performance that would have not been so bad if I had only known where I should have landed in case of falling. After this, we scrambled down a flight of steps cut into the rock and reached the lowest excavation, about 1,000 feet from the surface. The cinnabar is found in large pockets and veins, permeating a large kind of trap rock, and as the miners dig it out, large columns or pillars are left to support the roof, and prevent the chance of it falling in. A small charcoal fire burns slowly at the base of one of these massive columns, and as its flickering light fell dimly, illuminating with a roughly glow the bronze faced and nearly nude figures of the miners, the vermilion hue of the rugged walls and arched roof sparkling with glittering crystals, forcibly reminded me of a brigand's cave, such as Salvatore Rosa loved to paint.